what I like to do is, well, so if you think about it, we can start working on the dashboard part that brings in all the journal entries and things like that. But because the journal entries and stuff like that are going to be scoped towards the user, that means, we would either have to just make a bunch of mock data right now, and then we have to delete it later to bring in the real data, or we can just start using the real data right now, hook up a database. But if we do that, that means we need a user. And if we need a user, that means we need authentication. So this is where I'm just going to work on authentication. So let's just get authentication out the way. And typically authentication is just so hard to do. It's honestly a drag if you try to build it yourself, but we're going to use a really cool service that makes it super easy. I'm now in the boat of never rolling your own authentication anymore unless you have a really good reason, or you have the best authentication engineers on the planet for some reason at your company, and that's just what they like to do. Other than that, I think you shouldn't roll your own auth going forward, because who wants to be a security expert? So we're going to use a service called Clerk. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Clerk, but it's actually pretty dope. So let's go there. So if you go to clerk.dev, it's by far probably one of the best services I've seen, and I've tried them all out in the last few years. Kind of reminds me of Auth0 in the early days, but even still better than that. Auth0 still took I don't know, an hour to set up. This literally takes 5 minutes or less to set up. It's kind of crazy. So what we want to do here is you want to go make an account on Clerk. It's free. You don't need a credit card. You don't need anything to get started. You literally don't need anything. You just need an account to sign up. That's literally it. So I guess let me see if I can make a new account to go through the whole flow. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So you can see I already have some stuff here. So once you make an account, you'll see this right here that says add application. Just click that. Click add application, and it's just going to walk you through this form. So let's do that. I'll just say mood v2, since it's my second one. And then here you can kind of pick what authentication strategies you want. So, you want people to sign up with email. You want people to sign up with Google. You want people to sign up with their Xero account or their HubSpot account. You can do that too. You can switch on whatever you want. The cool thing is, if you use one of these third-party or one of these SSO ones like Google, these social ones, you don't need to go configure your own app right now to get started. You don't have to go on Google and configure your own OAuth app. You'll just use theirs for now. In production, you definitely probably want to configure your own, so when someone gets the OAuth modal, it shows your app and not whatever they're going to show. But you don't have to do that right now. It's literally free. So I'm going to keep email on. I'm going to keep Google on. And then I'm just going to click create application. And this is a preview of what the form will look like if you use their form. This is what you'll see. So if I turn on phone number, it says use phone. If I do username, it's username. Facebook adds Facebook. That's pretty cool. So I'm just going to do Google and email. I'm going to click create application. And then what you can see here, just make sure you have Next.js selected, which by default it already does. Because I don't know if it knows we're doing this, or it just assumes that everyone's doing Next.js because it's probably the best React framework out there. But make sure you have that. And then copy these environment variables here. So copy these environment variables here, .env, .local. And then what we'll do is go into our app. We'll make a new file called .env, .local. And we'll just paste that stuff in. So the difference between env.local file and a regular env file, it's just really what Next.js's conventions are. If it sees an env local file, it'll automatically load those environment and variables into your environment for you. Whereas if the .env file, I don't know if it loads that up automatically for you. I think you would have to load that up yourself using something like the .env package that you have to install. So that's the difference. We'll probably use both, because one of the other tools that we use will automatically load up the .env file for the databases. So we'll use both of them most likely, but just know that that's why that's here. It's for that reason. Okay, so once we have that, I'm just going to show you a preview of what the docs are, so you kind of know what it looks like and how to get started with it. But we are using Next.js 13, so make sure when you're looking at this that you are aware. But the first thing we want to do is just install the Clerk Next.js. So let's do that. So I'm going to head back to my app. I'm going to keep it running. I'm just going to open up a new tab in my terminal. I'm just going to say npm. I'm just going to copy what I pasted actually, or paste what I copied. npm install @clerk/next.js. let that thing install. And really, there's only a few things we need to do. One, we need to set up the provider for our entire app. We'll do that in our root layout. The other thing we need to do is we need to set up the sign up and sign in pages. And then the last thing we need to do is protect any route that we want to protect. And then we're done. That's it. Everything else from there is just using any helper functions you want to use to check to see if your user is logged in programmatically, like when you're making an API call or you're doing a server action or some server-side data fetch. So it's actually quite simple. So let's just do the setup for the provider here. You only have to import the Clerk provider here and wrap it around your root. It's actually quite simple. So if we go to our root layout, which should be an app layout, you can import from @Clerk Next.js, and you can get the Clerk provider like so, and just wrap it around the HTML here. You don't need to pass any props to it. It's pretty simple. The reason you don't have to pass any props is because it's just going to read those environment variables that we added. So you don't need to pass it anything. Okay. The next thing we want to do is just, what'd you say?
Could you show that import statement?
Oh, yeah, this one? Yeah, here you go. Yeah, question?
Are you using a VS Code plugin for the Tailwind autocomplete?
Oh, yeah. I forgot I had that. Yeah, I have a VS Code plugin for that. Let me see. What is it called? It is called Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. It gives you autocomplete for Tailwind. I think it, like, when you hit save, it will shift the order of the classes, because some classes in Tailwind, if you put them after another class, work differently. So it'll put them in the right order to get the expected behavior. But yeah, it's mostly just for the autocomplete. You get some linting too. So yeah, I am using that. It doesn't work all the time though. Sometimes you have to like you got to do weird stuff to, like, for instance, if I start adding a class name like here or something, it won't work all the time. So if I say like text, like you can see right there, it's not working. But then like you kind of start over and do it again, then it will. So it kind of just depends.
If you didn't select TypeScript, can you just make the files JSX?
Yeah, if you didn't select TypeScript, you can do JSX, and that's totally fine. You don't have to use TypeScript for any of this stuff. I'm just using TypeScript so people who want to use TypeScript can see an example of what it's like to use TypeScript.
Does wrapping the root layout with the provider make it a client component?
That's a great question. If you were to take a provider that was made before server components were created, that provider would not work by default because it would be using client-side things like hooks, like use provider or use context and stuff like that. But Clerk is on top of things, and they've been literally updating their SDKs since Next.js 13 came out, and they have made sure their provider works for server components. They followed the guide on the Next.js documentation on how to use providers, which is here. Let's see, somewhere in here. Here we go, providers. So they basically followed this guide to make sure that their providers work in layouts and things like that. Whereas by default, you're right, they wouldn't work. But to answer your question more broadly, nothing is going to transform your component to a client component other than putting the word use client at the top. It's not automatically going to turn to a client component. You literally have to put that at the top. Otherwise, you'll just get an error saying like, this should be a client component. Please put this at the top. Please put use client at the top. But yeah, it will never just automatically change your component to be client from server. Cool. Any other questions?
There's some debate around Tailwind and CSS in the chat.
I'm happy to enter that debate because I just came around to Tailwind less than a year ago. I had this conversation in the last course. I think when it comes down to just like, if you were already going to write your own CSS from scratch, you might as well use Tailwind. If you don't plan on writing your own CSS from scratch, there's probably better alternatives out there. Like find a component library that's already styled, and then use the props on that to change those styles. That's probably a lot better. But I'm now in this point where like I'm so opinionated with how I like things to look. I would rather use a component library that's headless, that has no style affiliated with it whatsoever, only functionality, and then use Tailwind to style it. And then the only thing I'm fighting with is configuring Tailwind, which I'd rather fight with that than like write my own CSS from scratch. So
There's some pretty exciting component libraries coming out that leverage Tailwind as well. So
yeah, there are, and yeah, it is getting better now. There are some component libs that use Tailwind. So I just think, yeah, Tailwind as a utility, like if you think of Tailwind as like a recipe to some meal, like, you know, like, oh, this component library uses Tailwind, I think it's great. But yeah, I think using Tailwind just like raw by itself, it can feel like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. But it's not that bad, specifically because they make the class names sound very similar to the functionality in which you're using. So you can kind of learn it really quick. And even then, you don't really need to learn everything. I keep this tab open. Oh, that's the component one, but I keep the other Tailwind tab open. Actually, I'm gonna open it right now. Because I don't remember all this stuff, but it's so easy to look up. I know what I'm trying to do. You know, if I'm like, oh, I need a border. Like, I know that if I go here, it's going to show me how to do it. I just go straight down to this one example I look at every single time, and I grab it, and I'm done, right? Because it's very simple. So it's like not something you need to be great at. Their documentation is good. You just need to know what you need to do, and then you're probably good to go. So this is really cool because it's going to leverage the catch-all routing system that Next.js has. So just a refresher on how catch-all works. So what that means is, let's say I go into the sign-up folder. I make a new folder in here, right? And I say, let's say this new folder says AI. This is just me writing scratch code. You don't have to follow along right now if you don't want to. Showing an example. This right here is basically saying it's a dynamic route. So when someone goes to /signup/ anything, I'm going to call it ID, activate this route. What I could do though is if I don't know how many routes are going to be after /signup, I could put ... in there. And now it's a catch-all route, which means if anyone goes to /signup/ anything, /anything, show this page, then I can take it a step further, and then I can just put another square bracket around it. And it does the exact same thing as what I just said, but it also includes if anyone goes to /signup. So that's what a catch-all route is. It's just basically any route that, in this case, will come after sign up, show this page. So we're going to do that for authentication. That way, if anybody tries to go to /signup, anything, it's going to show our sign up form. There's just no way around it. Do you have to do that? No, but you know, I guess it's just making sure people don't get messed up. You could also just build your own logic and show a 404 if they don't go to the page that you want, and then have them redirect back to sign up. So I think it's just a little easier than setting up that redirect logic and setting up a 404 and doing all that stuff. Just like, hey, if you go to /signup anything, we're going to see you to the sign up page. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to follow the instructions of what they expect us here to do. So if you look at the sign up page here, if you're looking at these docs, make sure you're clicking on the one that says app and not pages. Pages is, we're not using pages. That's Next.js 12. We're using app. So all we have to do is just make a sign up folder, and we're going to do the catch-all inclusive, which means double brackets with the sign up. So let's just do that. So I'm going to change mine from ID to sign-up like that. Oh, that says sing up. Funny story. I took singing classes before, and I'm not good at it. So I stopped doing it. And now if you go into this file, you do page.tsx, because again, if you don't add a page, it's not a route. So we have to add a page at the root of a folder in which we want our route to be. So we're gonna add a page here. And all we're gonna do is just import the sign-in component from at Clerk, Next.js. There's the sign up function, not the sign in, like that. We're just gonna make a component here. We'll call it the sign up page, like so. Oops. And we're just going to return the sign up, like that. I'm just going to export default this. I mean, honestly, we don't even need this wrapper. We could probably just return the sign up component, but you probably want this wrapper. That way you can style this page to make it look like what you want it to look like. If you wanted to style the component itself, there's two ways to do that in Clerk. You can do that on their website where you can like style it, but you can also just make your own sign up component. You don't have to use theirs. You can just make your own and like use like their inputs and things like that, or call their APIs. So like it gets really flexible. We're not going to do that. We're just going to use the one that they gave us because why not? You know, they already thought about it. So we have that there. So I'm going to export default that sign up page. So now we have sign up, and we're just going to do the same thing for sign in. So for sign in, make a new folder inside of that folder. Got our double square brackets, ... sign in like that. I'm just going to just copy this code here because it's literally the same code. Just instead of sign up, it's sign in. And I'm going to go into there, make a page.tsx. And I'm just going to paste. And I'm just going to grab everything that says sign up. On Mac, you can just do a keyboard shortcut of Command-Shift-L, and it'll copy everything there. And you can just say sign in.